It starts with a compliment. You don't feel the chain go on. You feel your shoulders warm. Someone says you're special. Someone says you're exactly what they've been looking for. Someone says you're different. The room seems to widen. Your breath seems to lengthen. And a door in your chest opens to let the praise inside. You tell yourself it's harmless. You tell yourself you deserve it. You tell yourself this is what connection feels like. But listen closely. Connection is not custody, and praise is not proof. What is being purchased in that moment is not your smile. It's your steering wheel. Kant would have been brutal about this, not because he hated affection, but because he loved freedom. He would have said, you are confusing an inclination with a law. He would have asked whether the reason you act could be willed as a universal maxim, or whether you have quietly traded your reason for access to applause. He would have called the trade what it is, heteronomy. A will directed by anything outside the law you give yourself is, by definition, unfree. And the most attractive prison in the world is the one lined with compliments. You want to argue about words. You want to say flattery is harmless. You want to say this is only about a smile, a nod, a well-timed beckoning from someone whose attention you crave. The semantics don't matter. You know what happens after. You start editing yourself to keep the weather pleasant. You start checking the temperature of the eyes across from you before you speak. You start asking permission to be the person you claim to be. And then, when your principles cost the room its comfort, you apologize for having principles. Kant's map is clear. Moral strength is not measured by how loudly you shout your convictions in rooms that already agree with you. Moral strength is measured by the reasons you act when those reasons are lonely. Moral strength is whether you can act from duty because it is right, and not merely in accordance with duty because it wins you favor. The difference hides in motives. From the outside, both men look the same. Inside, one is a mirror and the other is a weather vane. There is a particular intoxication in being praised for virtue while quietly drifting from it. The compliment arrives like a warm coat. You stop asking whether the coat fits your life and start asking how to keep the coat. You change your schedule for the coat. You shape your words for the coat. You discover how quickly gratitude becomes dependence when your sense of self rests on other people's adjectives. You did not intend to become purchasable, but purchasable is what you are as soon as the price is flattery. Kant loved a simple sentence that frightens children and flatters no one. Act only on that maxim which you can at the same time will to be a universal law. Strip the Latin, keep the razor. Before you move, ask what rule you're really obeying. If the rule is, say what keeps me admired, could you want a world where everyone speaks that way? You couldn't. Truth would disappear. Promises would dissolve. Courage would become theater. If the rule is, keep the peace by betraying yourself, could you want a world made of men who do that? You couldn't. They would be quiet, efficient, and dead inside. This is where you protest, because you've been fed a diet of agreeable ethics. You tell yourself that keeping her happy is kindness. You tell yourself that adjusting your convictions to stay desirable is generosity. You tell yourself that a small betrayal at the altar of harmony is the price of love. But if the purpose of your choice is to purchase favor, you are not loving. You are bargaining. The currency is your spine. There is a harder part here. You didn't invent your hunger for praise. Someone taught you to survive by becoming palatable. Childhood is a rehearsal for whom you will sell yourself to, and the marketplace is always full. The applause of a girl can replace the nod of a parent. The glow on a screen can stand in for the dignity you never learned to give yourself. You are not evil for wanting to be liked. You are simply unpracticed at standing upright when the wind of approval changes. Kant's answer to this isn't rage. It's adulthood. Dare to know, he said. Sapere aude. Not dare to be adored. Dare to reason for yourself. Dare to become responsible for the why behind your life. Dare to decline the sugar high of compliments and choose the nutrition of duty. He would not replace love with rules. He would place rules beneath love so that love can survive pressure without turning you into a liar. You are terrified that if you stop managing your image, you will lose your place. The reality is more surgical. When you stop selling your conscience for smiles, you will lose your audience. You will keep the people who love persons. You will lose those who love performances. That is grief, not tragedy. The tragedy would be winning the audience and never seeing yourself again. Picture the kind of man you claim to admire. He keeps his word even when no one will know. He speaks plainly without cruelty. He refuses to use affection as a bribe or guilt as a whip. He can be gentle without being bendable. He doesn't confuse charm with character. He can be alone. Now, put your hand on your chest and answer this without the old editing. Are you becoming him, or are you becoming popular? Popularity is a carnival prize. It looks shiny on a shelf. It cracks under weather. The most dangerous flattery is the kind that flatters your virtue. It tells you that you are moral because you are adored for being moral. You start arranging your choices for photographs of your conscience. You put your principles on parade. You are praised for the show. You forget the substance. Kant would smile almost sadly at your pageantry. He would ask whether the maxim behind your performance could be universalized without hypocrisy. He would ask whether you respect yourself or only your reflection in other people's pupils. There is a difference between being considerate and being controlled. Consideration listens. Control previews your sentences and hits delete before you've spoken. Consideration adjusts where adjustment protects the good. Control adjusts you. If compliments are the method by which your edges are shaved down, your edges are in danger, not your rudeness. A good partner wants your conscience awake. A good partner would rather be disagreed with by a man than worshipped by a mask. You already know how dependence feels. It feels like relief that comes with a bill. It feels like the kind of calm that requires constant maintenance. It feels like asking, "Do you still love me?" when the real question is, "Am I still allowed to be me?" It feels like avoiding certain topics because truth will change the temperature in the room. You would rather stay warm than stay real. Warmth without reality is insulation on a tomb. Let's get honest about vanity. Vanity is not simply liking praise. Vanity is trusting praise more than you trust the reasons you act. Vanity is rerouting your day to pass through favorable eyes. Vanity is accepting a story about yourself because it is flattering, not because it is true. Vanity is negotiating with your conscience to keep the applause going. Vanity is choosing a flattering lie over a lonely fact and then calling the lie supportive. Kant will not flatter you here. He will tell you to examine the maxim behind your hunger. I will say and do whatever keeps me admired. Then he will ask you to will that maxim as law for all rational beings. The experiment fails immediately. A world of such men cannot trust each other. Contracts would be theatre. Friendships would be currency. Marriage would be a stage. Politics would be a circus. You don't want to live there. Stop building it in miniature every time you adjust your ethics for a compliment. Do not mistake this for a sermon against romance. A love that honors your freedom is not allergic to affirmation. It simply refuses to use affirmation as a leash. There is a difference between a blessing and a bribe. A blessing sees you and wants your good, even when your good is inconvenient. A bribe sees your usefulness and wants your compliance. The tragedy of depending on flattery is that you will eventually recruit people who specialize in bribery, then confuse your obedience with devotion. A stronger word for devotion is duty, not duty to someone's mood, duty to what is right, the starry sky above me and the moral law within me. The line is overquoted because it carries a weight modern air loves to ignore. The sky does not ask your permission to be what it is. The moral law does not audition for your feelings. Freedom is not the absence of constraint. Freedom is the presence of the right constraint, chosen by a will that refuses to be rented. When your action lines up with that interior law, you become someone reliable to yourself. That reliability is more erotic to grown people than any pose. You keep hoping for a world where you can have both. The constant flattery that keeps your ego sedated and the clean mirror that lets you respect yourself. You can't have both. Sedation blurs mirrors. The way out is brutal and beautiful. Speak as if your words were laws you'd ask anyone to live under. Choose as if your sons will copy you and your daughters will assume men are made this way. Refuse to build dependency and then call the structure love. But what do you do when the room expects your bending? You don't storm out. You don't throw a lecture like a grenade. You steady your breathing, say what is true in a tone that can be heard, and live with the weather that follows. If there is a withdrawal of praise, don't chase it. If there is an accusation, listen for whatever fact is inside it and leave the manipulation on the table. If there is silence, notice how quickly your body interprets silence as danger and teach it a new meaning. Silence is space where your dignity can breathe. You will be tempted to replace one dependence with another. You will move from needing a woman's flattery to needing an audience's. You will trade the small room for the big stage and tell yourself growth happened. It didn't. The stage is still a leash. Kant's challenge runs deeper. Could you do the good you know to do even if every witness misunderstood it? If the answer is no, your virtue is still outsourced. There is a quiet education your life can offer people around you when you stop renting your spine. They will learn that love does not require management. They will learn that disagreement is not disloyalty. They will learn that a man who refuses flattery isn't hostile to affection. He's hostile to dependence. They will learn that boundaries are the grammar of dignity. They will learn that the kind of partner who wants a programmable person doesn't want a person at all. It will be lonely sometimes. Dependence fills rooms. Autonomy thins crowds. The friends who remain will be sturdy. The woman who remains will not be addicted to being the sun while you orbit. She will be a person standing beside a person. There isn't as much spectacle in that angle. There is more life. Test this in the places where your vanity used to run the show. When you speak, ask whether you're selling or saying. When you post, ask whether you're presenting or confessing. When you apologize, ask whether you're repairing or begging. When you promise, ask whether you're pleasing or committing. This is not a list to memorize. This is a posture to inhabit, to live as if your interior court has jurisdiction again. Kant's language can sound severe until you feel the relief it protects. The relief of not calculating. The relief of not being constantly staged. The relief of giving a yes that costs you something and therefore means something. The relief of saying no without adding 20 softening clauses. The relief of not inventing reasons to keep people comfortable at the expense of your conscience. That relief is what dependence counterfeits with dopamine. There is a story you could live that your grandchildren would understand without footnotes. It is not dramatic. It is consistent. A man who kept his word when it was expensive. A man who refused to flatter and refused to be flattered into smallness. A man who could love warmth without confusing warmth for worth. A man who didn't need to be fed adjectives to act with honor. A man whose children knew where to find him because his coordinates didn't change with the wind. You are not required to become stone. You are required to become sovereign. Sovereign men can receive praise like weather, notice it, appreciate the sun, and get on with the work. They can receive criticism without being erased. They can look into eyes that want to rearrange them and say, I will not abandon the law that lets me respect myself tomorrow. They can be tender without being tamed. There will be tests. The compliment that arrives precisely when you are doubting yourself. The invitation to bend in the smallest way that will not be noticed by anyone but you. The subtle audition for a role where your job is to be acceptable at the cost of being actual. The world is very good at discovering what you want to hear and playing it back to you. Become better at remembering what you need to say to yourself before anyone else speaks. If you have been living on flattery, the first weeks off, it will feel like a hunger strike. Your hands will go looking for the sugar. Your throat will open to call for it. Do not starve yourself of affection. Starve your dependence. Feed yourself with acts that line up with your maxims. Keep a promise without a witness. Tell an inconvenient truth in a kind tone. Decline an invitation that requires you to disguise yourself. Thank the praise that comes and do not fish for more. Accept the coldness that follows as a sign that the thermostat was never in your hands. One day, you will sit across from someone who used to be able to move you with a compliment. They will try the old key. It will not turn. Not because you hardened, but because you finally located the door. It leads inward, not away. Behind it is a small, stubborn room where you and your reasons live. The room isn't fancy. The room is clean. The room smells like cedar and rain, and the paper on which you write the kind of man you intend to be. This isn't isolation. This is preparation for the only community that won't destroy you, a kingdom of ends. Kant's phrase is clumsy until you look around and see what it means. A society of persons who refuse to use each other. A home where no one treats the other as a means to soften their fear. A marriage where encouragement does not mutate into management. A friendship that survives disagreement because neither friend is dependent on the other's flattery to remember who he is. You want romance? It blooms here, not in the hothouse where compliments function as climate control. It blooms where two free wills meet without seducing each other into roles. It blooms where you can be wrong without being disposable and right without being worshipped. It blooms where her affection is a gift, not an instrument, and your steadiness is a vow, not a brand. If this has been a mirror and it landed, mark it in the world, tap like, so this finds the man who's still renting his spine for approval. And tell me in the comments the one sentence you'll actually say today without editing. If you want to pass a gift forward, give someone you love the dignity of being disagreed with without being unloved. Affirm them without using affirmation as leverage. Stop flattering the people you secretly hope to manage. And stop expecting to be flattered into the man you should have the courage to become. Share this with the friend who keeps mistaking applause for conscience, and subscribe so tomorrow you remember the vow you made while the room was quiet. Moral strength is not found in flattery. It is found in the moment you could be praised for bending and you choose to stand. It is found in the way your no stops apologizing and your yes stops begging. It is found in the plain work of a life that does not need adjectives to be worthy. It is found wherever a man refuses to be owned by the eyes he loves. If you're keeping this, say so below. Say it out loud to make it real. Hit subscribe if you want that reminder to meet you again tomorrow when comfort comes calling. And when someone tells you you're admirable for doing it, smile, thank them, then keep walking. You weren't made to be mirrored. You were made to be a person.